Hello, I'm Max. I'm from the GreengineerZ, here with Darren Gilson, coach and programming mentor behind the set. Today what we're going to be going over is how to install all the new software, going from a blank laptop to being able to move one of the talons on a CAN bus on a robot. Keep in mind, this is not, and I've got it pulled up, the official 2019 driver station 2019 WPI library installer is released, but the 2019 National Instruments update is locked out until kickoff. So we could install that, but you're not going to be able to image your Rio or update its firmware. So we're going to be using the beta 4 for WPI Lib, different versions for CTRE, NavX, and National Instruments. But these installers are going to look a lot similar, and you're going to be able to see some of the new features and if there's nuances to going about them. So what we're going to start out with is the National Instruments. National Instruments Beta 3, that's not what you will find when you download it. It will be released on this page, the download link. They haven't updated since 2017, but still 2019 version, and said it on a previous page. This is going to be locked out, requires decryption key from the kickoff broadcast. So you can start these downloads now, but and I think I am in the background, but these are all locked out until kickoff. So if you haven't done a National Instruments installer before, this is what it'll look like. But if you have, nothing's changed with it. It's just another National Instruments installer. Important thing is, if what I do is I don't do the LabVIEW update because we don't develop in LabVIEW. And these already take a while, so we try to cut time where we can. So we're not going to install the LabVIEW update. If you're a LabVIEW team, you're definitely going to need to install that. And this is not going to go over how to get CTRE and Kunam or the NavX into LabVIEW, because we're not experienced in LabVIEW, so we're not qualified to talk about that. Another thing to note, I always do this just kind of out of habit. You don't need to. You can leave this entirely blank and just skip through it, and it's fine. You just doesn't actually matter. Have to accept licenses. Yeah, I trust National Instruments most of the time. And this is the part where this is going to take a long time. Alright, so we are back. National Instruments is done. From here on, I would recommend, because in the kit of parts we'll get a, in previous years we've got a packet that has a activation code for the driver station and LabVIEW and stuff. You can run the license manager. We skip it because we don't need to. You can get away without it, and it doesn't, from our experience, actually do anything. So, and no, we are definitely not gonna restart until after. So the next thing we're gonna start on is the NavX, and all of these can be found. There is a link. It'll be on the WPI Lib screen steps. And it says here, third-party stuff is found elsewhere. So, in this page can show NavX, CTRE, Spark Maxes for the new Neos. So those can be found here, but this will be in the 2019 FRC control system. Everything is documented there. So NavX is pretty much just click through it, and it's going to be done in... Oh, not yet. I was wondering when we'd need to do that. Another thing is I'm going to be installing Java JDK 8 because the beta at this point was using 8. Now, in the release, it will not use 8, so you'll have to install JDK 11. So this is going to be kind of a click through, and then we can get back into the NavX. And after that, we'll do CTRE. And now that we've got the JDK installed, we'll then do the VS Code, which is the replacement for Eclipse. And it's set up to everything you need for WPI and a development environment is all packaged into one installer and program. So previously with Eclipse, sometimes WPI was easier, I found, but getting Eclipse to handle the CTRE libraries sometimes was a pain just to get it to recognize it. But it's super seamless to install the third-party libraries now. It's really great. So the NavX just finished up, and now we're going to start on CTRE. Again, this is not current, but since this has the imaging tools, I can boot this up and we can put it on a Rio, and I can show you how to use and image the talons, or not image, update firmware and set the IDs, which we do not have to use the, I always organize my stuff. We don't have to use Silverlight through the web interface through the Rio anymore to change the IDs on those, and it's seems to just be another better interface to use. So we'll get that up once we have some code pushed to this, and we'll also re-image this Rio. This already is imaged, but the imaging software slightly changed because now also the firmware isn't updated through the Silverlight, it's updated through the imaging tool. So this is done. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open up the new VS Code installer. So we're on a 64-bit laptop, so we'll run this. We're going to go with current user. Alright, so this, and this again might change, should look similar to this. I don't expect them to change it a lot. What I would recommend doing is when you do select download VS Code, you can either download one and it will put it into a temporary, right now it's downloading here, but it'll turn it into a zip file. Once that's downloaded, you can take that zipped up file, put it on flash drives, and give it to everyone, or put it on every laptop you need, and then you don't have to download it per laptop. You can just, and we're not going to see it because we did the download, but the other option, like a few seconds back, was it was download on the left and choose an existing zip file on the right. So once you have it downloaded, I would just use that. And now we're just going to be waiting on a download. What we could do is just open this up, and we won't be able to connect to a Rio until once this is done and we get code on it. But we could open this up and just preview it. Maybe not, because it might be not happy until I've updated. Okay, it's open. So this is the Phoenix Tuner, is what it's considered for the CTRE. Similar to the end of last season, I don't think you had to do it at the beginning of the season. It's been got too much stuff in my memory, but now you absolutely do have to install Phoenix onto the Rio, and before you can use any CAN devices. This is where we would see all of our devices, and we'll see it in a bit. We'll plug into a robot we've got. One of the nice new features with this, it's small, but it makes a big difference when you're if you're reusing talons is, and this is where you have to, I go in here and, that can't move because it's the other window. It'll put a firmware, excuse me. Okay, maybe not. Don't know why I think that should be in, I can find the file directory. Documents? Oh. So the firmware link doesn't seem to be pointing anywhere valid. Oh. Okay, never mind. It's right here. I don't know why it just didn't like to open, but I opened the file location and it works. So, public documents FRC. And what you can do is, and I'm just going to copy this file location. And what you can do is, if we were updating, if we were plugged in, and if we had these talons, you could update every device. And when it says matching type, it just means, yeah, we're getting about halfway there. You can update every talon at once, which I hated the web interface. It was an absolute pain. So it's nice just to have this. It works a lot smoother. We'll move the IDs around on the robot we've got once everything's installed and we get it imaged. But yeah, this is great. There's also, we've only kind of played around with this, but what you can do is, and we'd have to be plugged into a robot to do it, but you can select a device and enable a robot, and you can run the devices through here. Kind of like if you put them on the smart dashboard or shuffleboard. This is just another way you can do that. Configuration is configuration. Self-test, this is where you would see like the amperage on voltage, like voltage on each lead, device ID, if it's just everything the self-test contained. And then also this is it's just a graph that shows, as shown here, position, current, motor output in percentage, and velocity in units per 100 milliseconds. So this is nice for tuning. But you do have to be plugged in to use it. So if you're tuning anything that you kind of want to run wireless, this doesn't work super great for that. But yeah, this is new features. Mostly the ones we've used so far is just to move the CAN IDs and stuff around, and we have to install the Phoenix. We never really use the self-test that much in ours. Okay, there I have two of those open, and we are ready to install. So what we're going to do is, if I don't sneeze, trying to find, it can't find where it is. It put it in the same directory. Oh, it would be in here. Offline VS Code files, that is the download for VS Code itself. So that's what I would recommend, just dropping on a flash drive. And we don't have any reason to not just install all of these. If you don't want to, you don't have to, but we're just going to install everything. And so this is the software for kind of replacing VS or Eclipse. And this, if we open the command palette, we can see there's already WPI stuff in here. So there's not really a way you can, unless the installation fails, you're not going to not have WPI stuff. So and Control-Shift-P on Windows is the default keyboard shortcut for pulling up the command window, which I find is the real easiest way to navigate around it. So what we'll do is just get a class built, or just a new project with nothing in it, and as long as we can build it, that's step one. And it's loading. Maybe not. There we go. So this is where we can say if we want a template example or we want to run Robot Builder. What we're going to do is a template. We're using Java, and Timed Skeleton Advanced is, you'll see it in a second. It's essentially just we're going to make a workspace, and we'll call it a example. This is our number. This check here is for if you are doing simulation and unit testing. We're not going to be doing that right now. And it, as it says, you can change that setting later. So we're going to add example to our workspace. Maybe open it. Man, I didn't mean to do that, but it does the same thing. So the directory is a little bit different than a default made by Eclipse. There's a new directory that on the Rio, if you were to SSH into it, whatever's in this directory deploy, as it says, will be deployed to the RoboRio in the home directory. And there's a WPI call to get the file path for these files. So this is like, it's kind of in turn for, it can be used with, there's a motion profile generation tool, or a path planning tool, and you can use, I guess the thought is that you could just push those files to the Rio through pushing code. We're going to reload this because most of the time when it's noting extensions or updating and stuff, it's best to just restart it or just reload it, and that's all. It's as quick as that. So main.java, and it says a lot of stuff here. Don't try to mess around with this unless you know what you're doing, and we're not going to mess around with it because that's not what we're doing today. I'm going to delete all the comments and stuff because I hate this. But this is a new kind of, it's just timed robot. But what this does is it's just a blank class like this, which I really love just for testing very, very small stuff if everything's going very, very wrong. And what we're going to do is the Java language server is starting, so we're going to let it start up first before we do any building and stuff. So this already has a git ignore in it, and this is building using Gradle. So it's going to be pulling WPI libraries and all of that online every time, or it's going to pull it when you build it, and then if there's updates, it'll pull again, and when you're offline, it's just going to go off of an older copy. So we're going to do search for WPI build robot code, and right now it's extracting and downloading, and it built. And what we can do to make sure that it's actually compiling everything correctly is make some syntax error, and it's definitely not happy. So it does show this is compiling pretty well. So the next thing to do is to get CTRE, and because this has got WPI in it, so we could say, make Sparks. We can, if you import Sparks, you can make Sparks. But what we really care about is, I'm gonna take the import out, is getting the newer libraries into it. So the way you do that is go to build.gradle, which is, it'll automatically generate, manage vendor libraries, and people that understand Gradle better than I do, because I don't understand Gradle enough, I just know how to make this work, they might tell you something different, and they might be more correct than I am, but my logic for installing libraries offline is I would rather just know what version I'm on all the time, because I don't want it to update without me knowing. If I'm at a competition and I pull code, I definitely don't want to accidentally update CTRE at a competition, even though you probably should have pulled your code before you go to the comp. But still, we're gonna install everything offline. But keep a note in the WPI lib screen steps for the vendor libraries. They show you in, I know the NavX and I don't know if CTRE documents it. They talk about how you do it online. It's about pasting a well, I could pull it up, but manage vendor libraries, install new libraries online. You would paste a URL here. We're not going to be doing that. What we're going to do is install new libraries offline, CTRE Phoenix, okay, and we'll notice a folder popped up here. Went into here and did manage vendor libraries. Now it won't show up again because it's installed. No new dependencies available. And I just now built it. It built, so we're going to try calling a WPI call, or not, I'm sorry, not a WPI call. We're going to call a CTRE call. So we'll use the Talon SRX class. We'll make a new Talon. And as long as this builds, we're happy. Deploying is another thing. We'll get to that once we have an imaged Rio. And the reason I'm opening up the Navex installer is I had to mess around a lot with the Navex to get not just this to see it when we're when we're going to add the library, but also getting it to import the library. So I'm going to run the installer again because now I can't remember if I did or not. So worst case, it's just going to do it again and we'll see if that fixes it. Might want to reload this. Okay, so check to install. CTRE is not there because we just did it, and our code's with it right there. So we're going to import, or not import, we're going to add that to our kind of build, and that's, now we see Navex FRC JSON file. So what we'll do first is just build this, and we'll see. So it built, and the way we instate a Navex, I don't even know if it's a good way to do it, but this is port this. That's how we do it. I don't know why I'm declaring it out here like I'm actually writing code here, but so it built, and with this we can, there's all the very CTRE-esque calls for every 10,000 parameters that they give us, which is great because it's a lot of stuff we can mess with. Same with the Navex. All of these calls are here. It's in the software, and that's all you have to do to get CTRE and Konami Labs, or the Navex, into VS Code. Now there is a lot of other libraries. These are the ones that they talk about. Rev for the Spark Max, Mind Sensors. I haven't even used any of these. This sounds vaguely familiar, but the addition process to VS Code is going to be similar. It's going to be manage vendor libraries. I like the streamlining that they've done. The same way to if you needed to uninstall them. So if an update came out for CTRE and you want to get that out of your VS Code, get that off your computer, put new stuff on, check to uninstall. And I'm expecting, if we build this again, I hope it errors, because if not, something's wrong. So this isn't yelling at me, but the compile is, so that's all we really care about, because a lot of the times this is lying too anyways. I bet if we reload that, then it'll yell at me that that's not a good import. That, or maybe it's not going to remove it off of the build. No, that should error. Either way, it errored in compile, which is all we care about. Showing that it removed it successfully. Okay, there we go. That's what I was looking for. I wanted an error there. So now it doesn't know what those are. removed itself, and we can just add itself back in. You could drop a new version in if you downloaded one. So it's really that easy. It's not that hard to make a video on this because they've really done a good job with their software on the Windows version. Not necessarily saying the MacBook and Linux versions are bad, but I've struggled a little bit more with them. And this built, so it got put back in, even though this is still yelling. So what we'll get on to next is we can't really push this to anything until we image. So we'll go and do that next.
And start recording video.
Alright, so this is the RoboRio imaging tool. Looks very similar, but the only difference is here you have format target and update firmware. You want to update the firmware when you're like when you have older firmware from the last season. I don't know if I do believe the firmware did change from 2018 to the 19 beta, so definitely just update your firmware first. It wouldn't be the worst if you do any like stuff on the rail besides just putting your code there. Make sure you get everything off of it in case it deletes it. Use an SSH or something to get in there and take everything off, back stuff up. Otherwise, just run the firmware update and then format it. One thing we found was it really doesn't work the majority of the time if you're connected to any kind of Wi-Fi. So on this you can just, and I won't do it because we'll lose video feed, but disable the Wi-Fi adapter like you would going onto the field, or that you should going onto the field with a driver laptop. Just shut that off, and we've had more success just shutting off the Wi-Fi adapter. Since we've been driving this one around before this video, we're not going to update it because that takes a long time and there's nothing to show in it besides talking about what can go wrong in it, which for us, the only thing we've done wrong is, well, you'd have to make sure you update the firmware before you try to format. It won't be happy if you try it the other way around. And if I can remember, the error message is very vague. So firmware, format, without Wi-Fi, and you should be good on this. And there's always the startup settings. You don't necessarily, I would say, enable console out. I don't know if this will work because we still have the Wi-Fi adapter on. And I don't super care if it does or not, as long as I don't stop it in the middle of trying to do this. What we'll get into next is we'll push some code to this. We'll open up a driver station. We might have to restart it in the middle because we've done all of this installation without updating this or restarting this laptop, and most stuff is fine except National Instruments. And to be fair, it does tell you that it needs a restart, so it's fair for it to get finicky. Well, if we can't get comms, oh, it's resetting the imaging tool because I closed it out. If we can't get comms with the driver station instantly, we'll have to restart this, and we'll pick the video up in a second. Every time I've done this, it boots up fine, but as you go in to change your team number, it'll just freeze. Yeah, we're going to have to restart. So we will be back shortly. We're going to have to restart this, and then we'll get code pushed to it, and then we'll also log in through the Phoenix interface and change some IDs around. Alright, so before we're going to push code, we're going to show off the Phoenix tuner. We've got it plugged into a Rio. Now this Rio already has updated firmware, image, and it already has the Phoenix library installed, but we'll just, there's no harm in doing it for the Phoenix. Most we would have to do is restart or redeploy code, and that's okay. So that's all it took to install everything we need for the Phoenix. And here are all the devices we have running on this robot right now. PDP should always be on 0, as I believe. Talons, and it's another thing that it works, and there's not a super big point in showing you. You can select firmware. The firmware's on the desktop. There's a not a backup folder, shortcut to a folder with all the firmwares for all the different kinds of CTRE equipment, and you can update them all. The Talons, and we don't have any Victors. We're gonna be getting some, and you'll have to test it yourself if you can update each Victor individually. No idea. But with Talons, at least, you can update all of them to the same image. It still takes about the same amount of time, maybe 80% of the time. So like 120% is fast. But nice feature nonetheless. The way you change IDs, gotta make sure I don't mess this up in the process. You can't go that high. Let's go to 30. Change ID. The way we always set ours when we're like putting new Talons on is get them all off the numbers and then put them on the numbers individually. I'm just going to do it for 4, don't super matter. Blink does the same thing as as it used to from the web interface. It just makes the Talons blink, same thing. Even though now I'm not noticing one blink. Maybe I just can't find it. Oh, it's hidden. It's in there. It's blinking though. I'm going to set these IDs back so when we go to drive this around later we actually can. But we're going to, now that we have our IDs set, and I'm going to run and grab a little tote to put this on so that we can spin the motors without it ripping my laptop. Alright. We're now ready to do some of the self-testing and all of that. So, going to have your robot enabled to do it. And if we control enable, then that's going to let us move one. So like if we want to choose right one. And this is only changing the control mode for this Talon. So the way the shuffleboard used to work was it would kind of knock all the Talons out of follower mode. But this is keeping all of our Talons on the right side. They're still followed together, which is nice for that. I don't know how often we'll use this, but the more useful feature in this is the plotting. You can enable this, and right now it's constant, but if we, I don't know if you can, oh, there we go. To actually put that window, what do you want? Yeah, we can put it here. And we'll make it a little bit smaller. What we can do is so we can see our motor output was the more updating, or the easiest to visualize number. You can do stuff with zooming. Press Y, auto zoom. So there we can see a current spike of 23, 24 amps. Now this is a test drivetrain, so it doesn't actually have any encoders connected, but you would be able to also read position and velocity. See velocity is at 0, position probably is also hiding in that line. So if you were doing tuning or anything, this is kind of an easy way to get those values onto a graph without having to make your own, whether it's shuffleboard. Shuffleboard has its uses, but I don't like just the network tables in general. So I don't like using that. Writing to a CSV or anything is, for quicker testing, it takes too long. So I'll probably use this for tuning because it's a really easy way to see the values I need to see. Outside of this, config lets us, similar to the, I'm going to disable. Similar to the web dash, this lets us change values and such of the talons through this config. It's still recommended you should always just do this with your code. These are persistent and they probably will be, but if you set them in your code, it also lets you swap in a new talon and it'll configure it how it needs to. But you can use it for this. I could see this being useful if you were, again, tuning. You could not self-test. If you were testing a PID tuning and changing the values, that would be useful. I don't know if you can actually... Oh, that's a non-FRC robot. Maybe it's something that is not available because my code's running and setting the values. But you could still just not use the control part and just configure it while you're while it's running and plot it if you were tuning, and just have your own code set positions and do all of that. This is nice for that. It's a quicker way to update settings. One nice feature now that I can think of would be if you could choose multiple talons and say configure motion magic acceleration on multiple talons at the same time, for stuff like a drivetrain where when you're tuning they're probably going to be similar for a short period of time. But that's what the tuner, the Phoenix tuner, looks like. It operates really nicely. It's not had any connection problems, and it's just worked so far. I like it. So what we'll get into, I already had one running, probably shouldn't have done that. What we'll do is we'll just deploy this code, because we'll pretend that I actually imaged and firmware updated this with either the beta or the real software, because this was already firmware updated, and I don't feel like doing it again because it's just more wait time. So deploy, again, Control-Shift-P is kind of like the master key with this. You can probably go in and change that to get a better keyboard shortcut. But this is where, if you use WPI, create new commands and all of that, one thing you want to do is just click that, and then I think I clicked out of the deploy. I don't know what it did. Okay, it's executing. And we're deploying Java to this. If it would the first time you deploy Java, it will install Java onto the Rio. And here we have this. What we could do is I don't think the method's here. We'll just print out the yaw or something of the gyro. So we can make sure that's working. Do you have okay, yeah. Didn't remember if this robot actually had a Navex plugged in. So, deploying code, and no, we don't even need to enable our robot. Also, I believe Eclipse had this as well, but this is the Rio log. Lets you see the console output. Something I found is it's really hard to get it to stay zoomed into the bottom because it just goes to the top. Haven't really found a solution for that. I don't really use it a ton. I'd rather just stick with the console, but we can move our robot around, get a new yaw. So code's deploying. We could also, if we're careful, just run, we'll just put it in auto. We'll just set this to a small amount of output because we don't want to do it for too long because it's in a gearbox and I don't want my electrical team to actually destroy me because I know they will. Oh, that's not declared correctly. Oh, what am I trying to print? Come on, Max. And as long as we shut it off and disabled. Where's disabled? Oh. I'm just going to scoot this into periodic. I didn't mean to put it there. Public void disabled. Set 0. There. And what this will do is just we'll put it in auto and it'll just spin one of the 4 on one gearbox. So we'll just do it quickly to make sure our Phoenix and everything are okay. Oh, there was, and I don't know, I'll probably have to dig into my other code to find it. There was an issue with the Talons in beta. Yeah, I don't think I'm getting it because now that we instated the Talon. Yep. So, and I know CTRE is aware of the issue. So by kickoff, I'm assuming it will be fixed. But there was something about a lock in the Talon software, or like I don't know if it was firmware or the class. It sounds more like the firmware that it would actually, and you can see here that in robot periodic that should be printing the yaw, but since disabled periodic is also shutting that Talon off, it's not printing. There was an issue with the beta, and there was a workaround for it, and I'm finding it in our real code. Okay, there it was. What you had to do was, and you shouldn't have to do this in the new one, but this was kind of a workaround to get around that. There. So now when we deploy, we should still be getting a printout of, let's see, the yaw of the gyro. There we go. Here we have a yaw, and one side of our drivetrain's moving very slowly. And we'll disable it so we don't break it. But that is kind of how you can go from a clean laptop, and also something to note that not necessarily it's more of a personal thing we do on the team that seems to eliminate problems is start with a clean laptop, and not everybody can fully erase laptops because school provided, and some are students' personal laptops, but we have found that we have a lot less issues with installation, with like updates down the road. If you fully wipe out a laptop, clean it out, like just before this video we fully erased this laptop and just put the only things on it when we started was OBS to make this video, Chrome, and like 7-zip, because if you're starting from a clean slate, installation will go a lot more. If you're installing on multiple computers, it'll be a lot more dependable on every computer. So I would advise start with a clean laptop if you can, or do your best to do so. So make sure you get rid of National Instruments and CTRE and everything. Just try to get as much out of it as you can before you start installing new stuff. So that's pretty much all you need to know to take the new software that will come out and put it on a Rio and start to be able to migrate your programs over. Most of these software, I know I already started downloading the Nashville Instruments and CTRE, the beta and everything. And after this video, we're probably going to wipe this laptop again and start to get newer stuff installed. Because all of that is available. It's just going to be locked out until kickoff. So get everything downloaded as quick as you can. And good luck to all that are entering the build season.